Hello and welcome to the Inspiring Industry podcast, where we discuss our conversations with leaders from industries across the globe. I'm your host, Danielle Champ, and in this episode, I sit down for an exclusive interview with James Casserly, director and founder of the business specializing in ERP systems, Manu Online. To keep up with news happening in your industry, visit our website or follow us on LinkedIn. Those links can be found in the show notes. And if you like what you hear, why not subscribe and leave us a review? Here's what you can expect in this episode.
There has been probably a lack of trust of the cloud. It's about how do we take all of these technologies and augment them with human decision-making capabilities. There is no one version of the cloud that fits everybody. There are flavors or variations of that.
It was self-evident that there needs to be a business process in a manufacturing company where sales is closely tied to production and procurement schedules. These cloud systems are reliable. Manu Online has never lost a day in well over 10 years. One of my customers called me up and said, "I'm very sorry, the factory's burned down." For a start, he was on a cloud system, so the one thing he didn't lose was his data. He lost everything else.
Whether it's the cloud, AI, tech development, whatever you want to call it, software solutions raise alarms in every industry. I mean, it was just a month ago when tech giants Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, and thousands of others signed an open letter calling for AI labs to pause on the development of systems more powerful than GPT-4. Some of you may have seen these headlines and recognize the cause for concern. Rightly so. I think it's really tricky to trust in the unseen, and there are still so many unknowns about this technology that I think until policies are put in place that safely regulate it, we can't fully grasp the impact it will have on the working world. However, that being said, there are aspects to data intelligence, particularly cloud-based systems, that can be so helpful to the growth and development of companies, especially in the manufacturing industry. Many businesses might already be familiar with enterprise resource planning, also known as ERP, and how it helps manage company data and optimize workflow. Others, on the other hand, might be more skeptical, which is totally understandable considering how quickly technology is evolving. For manufacturers that have spent hundreds of years refining their trade and depending on human resource, handing over trust to essentially a bit of code is daunting. However, in this episode, we want to break down what the cloud is and how it can be used to secure your business, improve efficiency, and streamline your operation. I'm not the expert though, so for a more specialist view on the whens and whats of cloud tech, we have a foreword from Rob Sinfield, the Vice President of Product at Sage, one of the largest software solutions businesses in the industry. Rob sets the scene perfectly for the solutions of cloud-based software and how we can reframe the conversation to protect and improve data management.
There has been probably a lack of trust of the cloud amongst some manufacturers because they don't want to put their stuff up in the cloud. They don't want to have anybody have access to their data. Manufacturers have always been more cautious than a lot of other industries, and that's perfectly acceptable. I think the cloud has changed and has now become incredibly important for manufacturers who are looking to streamline processes, increase efficiencies, and looking at how they unlock new opportunities for growth. But there's also other things that the cloud brings. They're able to attract a different type of workforce. They're able to offer remote working, which is very attractive nowadays to people who are entering the workforce. They don't necessarily want to work in a mucky, grimy factory. They want to work kind of remotely. So I think that's huge. The cloud kind of does a couple of things, or there's probably 5 major areas where the cloud helps. Number one is improved data management. Cloud solutions really allow manufacturers to be secure in the fact that their data and their solutions are managed. They don't need to invest in that. They don't need to be experts in that. It gives them access to a huge amount of data, which can really help them to identify patterns, optimize processes, and make more informed decisions about what's happening in their business. There's obviously the efficiency side of it. So if you use cloud technologies, it makes it easier to deploy automation. It makes it easier to start to leverage artificial intelligence to drive some of these efficiencies and streamline processes and not reduce the need for manual labor, because I think that's a dangerous thing. Most people think AI and machine learning are going to replace people. As we move into the fifth industrial revolution, and that's really important, the fifth industrial revolution. It's about how do we take all of these technologies and augment them with human decision-making capabilities. So it's not about having the AI take the decision. It's about having the AI make a recommendation for what's the best course of action. So the role of the human being changes from, oh, I'm just managing everything, to managing by exception, which means they can be far more effective in the decision-making process. So it changes the role of human beings. What this means is you get faster production times, fewer cycles, reduced costs, improved decision-making, and ultimately, hopefully, higher quality products on the back end of that. Collaboration becomes huge when you've got cloud. People can more easily collaborate things. They can work together on things. We have a couple of customers who are engineering firms, and by deploying cloud solutions, they're now able to interact directly with their customers, their suppliers, and have their customers and suppliers interact together to more quickly resolve problems, to interact around things, to identify potential issues, which becomes huge. Cloud is going to offer better customer experiences because customers can see what's happening. Suppliers can be more responsive because there's more visibility as to what's happening. You can identify delays. And those companies that adopt the cloud generally are more successful than those that don't. So there's a huge reason for businesses to start to look at the cloud. But the cloud doesn't have to mean multi-tenant and everybody running in that. There are still businesses that need to have the cloud, but they want to be in a single tenanted cloud, or they want to deploy on different cloud platforms, or they are in a controlled industry, so they can't follow an update cycle every quarter because they are GXP or GAMP certified. They need FDA certifications, or they need EMEA, European Medicines Agency certifications to say that they've done all the quality assurance that they need to do before implementing the next round of changes. So the cloud takes on different variations or flavors depending on where you operate, how you operate, and what you ultimately want to achieve from the cloud. So that's really important for people to understand. There is no one version of the cloud that fits everybody. There are flavors or variations of that.
I think Rob raises a fascinating point there regarding the fifth industrial revolution and how the role of humans will inevitably change with it. I believe this is what makes our interview with James Casserly so poignant. James, who founded Manu Online, is an expert in all things cloud. Throughout his career, he has seen how manufacturing can be made easier and has invested loads of time in crafting solutions that protect and improve businesses in the industry. In this exclusive interview, we learn about the problems James has encountered and how he is using his technology to solve these challenges for other companies. So, without any further ado, over to James. James Casserly, thank you so much for joining us. We are here to discuss Manu Online and the cool things that are happening within the business that you started, I believe.
I did.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'd love to know about that journey. How did Manu Online come to be what it is?
I have been doing manufacturing things all my life, also studied it at the university back in the day. And at one point early in my career, I had a small electronics company. And it was interesting as a young guy to go into that manufacturing company and look what was happening. And what I found out in my first day or first few days, very inspiring for the business in terms of processes. I would walk out onto the shop floor and have a look. What are people making? And one day I was stressed out because customers telling me I'm late with their products. And I go and look, what are they making? And nobody is making this. And so I asked the people, what are they making? And they said, we're making this product. And I said, why are you doing that? Well, because we always make it in batches of 500. I'd say, okay, but we have a more urgent order coming in from another customer with a slightly different product. The other challenge that came up one day is I had a biggest order we'd ever had in our business at the time, and we had 6 weeks delivery time for it, which was a long lead time for us. We went 4.5 weeks into that, and my buyer told me, we didn't buy the stuff which we needed on time, and that stuff is on 4 weeks delivery time. Very upsetting. And because have always been interested in business processes, it was self-evident that there needs to be a business process in a manufacturing company where sales is closely tied to production and procurement schedules. And that is what ERP does. So I left my life running a manufacturing company to look at systems. And what inspired me for that was the knowledge that cloud was coming. And so this was in the very early days of cloud. And because I think of everything manufacturing, I was thinking, okay, what is cloud going to mean for manufacturing? And so we had the original product ID to make a cloud business system for manufacturing companies. And what would that mean? It was going to be slightly, or in the end, quite different from legacy systems. Legacy systems were the client-server systems, which were around at the time, and cloud was going to be different. It wasn't just a question of technology. It was a question about how the industry works, how the layout of the systems work, and particularly it was going to make it much, much easier for small companies to take on ERP systems and to improve their own business processes, react quicker to customers, service their customers better, and let the managers sleep better at night because they know that the right stuff's being made in the factory at any one time, that the right stuff has been purchased as soon as the orders have come in, so that the big ERP system world could come down to small manufacturing companies. And this is what inspired me in the first place.
Super, super. I'd love to go further back than that. You mentioned that you'd been involved in manufacturing your whole life. What brought you to that affinity?
Well, that's difficult to answer. I can remember my first job when I was schoolboy, 13-year-old. I was taken to my parents' friend's little factory and I was counting bolts at the inventory for an inventory. I think it was the first job I ever had. Was I even 13? Can I have even been 11 or 12? I don't know. No. But no, I studied in school, of course, all the normal maths, physics, and then I went to university and studied. My degree was it was a manufacturing management degree, which I did at the University of Manchester at the time.
You also mentioned how you had a feeling that, cloud was coming to manufacturing. How have you seen ERP evolve in your time as watching it since it was kind of first established?
So there's a big trend, which was evident at the time and is happening very much now. And that is the movement away from what you can call monolithic ERP systems. So in the previous world of having a server inside your company, in your data room or under the manager's desk, then you had to have one server which did all of those things. Whereas now when it's cloud, you can, when you run a business, you can put together several key applications which together make the ERP. So strictly speaking, Manu Online, we say it's an ERP for manufacturing companies, but right from the beginning, we knew actually there's going to be cloud accountancy. And so the accountancy packages will be for everybody. Everybody that does a tax return pretty well should have an accountancy package. But then in manufacturing, you could have a line of business which was specific for manufacturing. So this is what we knew at the beginning, is that our product is going to be for manufacturing companies. And so we're quite different from the traditional way of making a system, which is, okay, let's do an account system. Let's add some order handling. Okay, then maybe we need some inventory control control. Okay, the next, someone's asking for a bill of materials. That's a bill of materials. And what was happening in the software industry is that the further away people got from their core product idea, the feature set became worse, in short. And that's understandably so, because accounting systems apply for every company in the country. Everybody has to do their statutory accounts, and they look pretty much the same. Whether you run a hotel business or whether you run a manufacturing company, you still have a profit and loss statement. Whereas when you get in further away from the core features, then it became difficult for the monolithic ERP vendors to make good software. Now, that doesn't apply if we're talking about the huge companies, the ones who are running SAP and stuff like that. There's enough resources to do good stuff all over. But when you're talking about the small and mid-sized market, it was very difficult for them. And so the way that we saw it, okay, the central account systems were going to be surrounded by best of breed line of business applications, and because we are manufacturing people, we were looking at manufacturing software. So Manu Online, in terms of a product, when you log into it, you'll see a menu that says sales. You'll see a menu that says purchasing. That can apply for many things. But when you look at the feature set, then sales is sales for manufacturing. There's a lot of stuff in a sales order which is around, okay, how is this going to be made? What's the scheduling of it, et cetera, et cetera. So all the details are for manufacturing. And this is how at the beginning I saw the future was going to go, that there would be an ecosystem, as they've become to be called, and app stores where there becomes line of business and you can put together line of business applications. So when a small manufacturing company needs systems, it's unlikely they're going to take a single system, but they're going to take a few systems which are tightly integrated to each other.
Diving a bit deeper into that, when you think about these ecosystems, what sort of challenges are you still trying to iron out?
At the moment, where we are is, as an industry, I think, is just the beginning of integrations, APIs, as they're called, the technical side of integrating. And the need for integration will be, I think, the final cause why people need to leave behind the legacy client server systems. So it's not so much about cloud, that the fact that the server's in data center. You can always take an old system, put it in a data center. That's not the issue. The issue is, are you, as a software provider, a paid up member of the API world? And there's a certain amount of de facto technical standards around that, like the way these APIs are published, how the security is done. They evolve, but they are evolving as an industry, as de facto industry standards. Nobody's writing down what you have to do, but people are in general following certain ways of working with integrations. And you can see it, there's a lot of, when we see newer products on the market, a lot of them do start from the beginning very much with API built in right from the get-go.
I suppose as more companies kind of make that leap, what are the current trends happening within cloud-based operations that we can share with them to kind of encourage that sort of excitement?
I've been in the last few months thinking about the appification. I don't know if anybody else uses the word, but in the same way that people, that, like I was mentioning, then you can talk about manufacturing ERP systems, that there will become more details available, more specific apps to do that. Now, those apps might come from the same vendor, but that will be the way to do the building blocks. And in terms of industry, the way that I see it is that there will be more opportunities for the people who put together those things and do the management of them for small companies. So what we see in the industry is that some people, in terms of the customer base, in terms of the buyers, there's different levels of ability to see their industry, to see their future in terms of business processes on the cloud. And those people who don't see it so well would need the help. And so that's the way that the industry will change, I think, in terms of providing these systems. Because it will get more complicated in terms of setup. It will be easy to put these apps together, or to these bits and different business processes together, but the people who are running the manufacturing companies will have to have a very clear idea of what they want. So it will be, I think, not the question of just going to one big vendor and say, okay, give me your standard product and we'll run like that. They will have to know exactly how they're running their businesses and then to be able to do processes like that. And I think now I'm saying it a little bit, well, that's a downside. It's not, it's the opposite. Because what it's opening up is it's opening up a competitive advantage for manufacturing companies to serve their customers better by having excellent business systems in their organizations.
You have a sort of trajectory or a timeline on when using cloud-based operations will kind of be cemented and businesses will be all on board? Or do you think it'll be a continually evolving journey?
It's evolving all the time, and different companies are evolving different speeds. And I would encourage anybody who's not seriously thinking about cloud ERP in their manufacturing companies to at least consider what they want to do with it and start thinking about it, because it gives such great opportunities to speed up. It's a kind of thing going in the market as well about nearshoring, bringing manufacturing back from offshore. And so that's very much goes deep into the way that manufacturing is run. How do you do your product design so that it's multi-level with sub-assemblies? What assemblies are you making in which batch quantities? How are you working with sales configuration? How are you working with your CAD systems to do configuration? And very much there's, depending on companies, very much move away from the old original Henry Ford idea of you can have any Model T that you like as long as it's black, so that the customers then can get exactly what they want with shorter delivery times. So this is not like just an IT problem or an IT issue. The thing is, it's about the company strategy and how to perform well. And I see that there's enormous potentials for this in the future. And in terms of the trajectory, there's no end date to this. I would say that from my experience, if I'd looked back from 10, 15 years ago, I thought that the industry would be moving on to cloud much more quickly than it has done. But maybe that was just my optimism on that. But I think it's very much underway at the moment. There's no question about that. And there's no end date to it. It will keep going like this. The systems get better and better all the time.
How do you think ERP systems are innovating the manufacturing industry?
As I mentioned, there is the possibility to do different ways of manufacturing with more modern systems. It's not just a question of take the old system out and put the new one in. Sometimes it is. But if you are running a manufacturing company and you are thinking, let's change the system, you should always be thinking of, actually, what could I do in my company as a whole to benefit from the new systems? And so what we see quite often specs coming from the customers. Okay, we need a system that does that. And often that's built around their legacy system. And what we like to do is to go with them and look at the bigger picture. It's usually not too difficult to do. It's just a question of having a short time to just review, okay, what can be done here? What could we do to make our company better now that there are new systems?
Just to double check that I'm understanding this correctly, it's not necessarily about taking one system and copy pasting it onto different businesses. It's about molding the system to help businesses best improve their efficiency according to their needs. Exactly.
I can give you a very concrete example. One of my customers called me up, and by coincidence, I was about to visit that factory the following day, but he called me and said, look, I know you're coming tomorrow, but I'm very sorry, but we've had a disaster here. The factory's burnt down completely. And I thought, okay, well, I'll come anyway. And because I wanted to offer the guy a bit of moral support. This is a factory with about 30 employees or something. I drove to the factory. The highest part of the factory was probably about 3 foot off the ground. There was nothing left like that. Absolutely nothing left. For a start, he was on a cloud system. So the one thing he didn't lose was his data. He lost everything else, but he didn't lose his product, his order book, his bills of materials, etc. That was all that. And so, funnily enough, all he had to do was log in to Manu Online, take out his list of inventory, and that was his insurance claim for inventory done. It was almost amusing, but he was in shock. It took him a few weeks to come round to it. Is he going to continue or not? But he got the insurance money, and then he called me up and he said, "Look, I'm going to build another factory, but this time I want to build it so that it works more efficiently. And as I know now how Manu Online works, let's build the factory and the business processes in the factory around Manu Online." I said, "Fantastic, let's do that." He did it. So 6-9 months later, he had a new factory, better layout, better business. He had faster throughput in his factory. Everything was fine.
I mean, that's one of the clear examples where an ERP system can literally bring a business back from the ashes.
It can. It would have been difficult if he'd lost all his data as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of seeing the thread throughout our conversation, but I'd love to know from you, as the owner of the business, what do you believe separates Manu Online from its competition? There's
two basic things which I have mentioned already. That is cloud only and focus on manufacturing. Those are the two first things which we shouldn't forget. The other thing which separates Manu Online from its competition is that we have a little bit more flexibility than a lot of the cloud systems. So there is a temptation in cloud systems to build something very good and sell it very widely as a standard product. And then on the other hand, there are very customized systems. We're kind of in between with that. So it means that we are able to do enterprise projects, but using standard software. And the way that we do that is we have a fairly modular system, and we also can build integration. So if necessary, if someone needs a feature, we look at, okay, could we build an app for that? And we do, starting from a few years ago, we've now been doing quite a number or more and more of specific business solutions, which involve taking Manu Online and then doing a small custom app to integrate to some other system or to give some feature. And I see that's very much in the future, that we need to be able to provide that flexibility to our customers, so that occasionally we have to say no to a customer because they want basically a very customized system, and we are still standard, but we're not like locked in that this is what you get exactly. We can build around those features, and we have, I mean, in terms of the modularity of Manu Online, there's something like 50 plus different modules, so we can switch on and off in the software to solve certain problems, and that list grows all the time. Just thinking about the example that you gave, and kind of wondering in the bigger picture for international disasters like the pandemic, how can we see a benefit for ERP to help businesses in those kinds of really trying moments? The great thing about cloud is that we were completely ready with work from home before the pandemic even started. So the most of our integrations are done through Teams and, remote meetings and stuff like that. And we were doing that before the pandemic as well. And so that continues as well. The other thing which I would mention is that the data systems for cloud are extremely reliable. Sometimes people can get the wrong idea from this because they hear, oh, Facebook is down, or there's some other big catastrophe going on that they hear about in the news. But the reality is that these cloud systems are reliable. Manu Online has never lost a day in well over 10 years off. Whereas, no, I don't think anybody can say that of their under-the-desk computer systems. So an under-the-desk computer system can, of course, break down any time, and then you have to call someone in. Manu Online is still computers. We do have problems, but the nature of cloud is the means that they're being run run and monitored in a data center. So far, so good. And I think the statistics will be slightly different from people's impressions about the reliability of cloud, but cloud has proven to be reliable. On a more, I suppose, personal note,
What would you consider the most rewarding aspect of your job?
I love talking to other people running manufacturing companies. That's what I've been. I've been in and out of so many different small manufacturing companies, small, medium-sized manufacturing companies, which is the people who we work with. And I love doing business with them. There's no question about it. I love, and the downside of cloud is perhaps I do site visits a bit less than than would have been done when you had to go on site and fix things. But so I do, we have customers all over the world. I do on so-called social visits as much as I can and have time for and drop in on people and talk about them. But it is fascinating to see what people do in small manufacturing companies. There's no other way to describe it. You can go to some remote corner of the country and you find someone who's got such interesting ideas of how to run business. Maybe they're not going to be successful for other reasons, but sometimes it is fascinating. I find it fascinating anyway.
On that note, James, what can we expect from Manu Online in 2023?
More apps, appification, if I could say that. I think that, more features. My list is longer than what my coders can do, so it goes like that.
For me, it was an absolute pleasure to speak with James. He spoke so candidly about how he's worked closely with businesses to provide the best solutions for their data management. So for those out there listening and feeling a bit on the fence about how to best incorporate cloud-based tech without damaging the integrity of your team, I hope this has been an insightful listen and has provided you with some peace of mind on how data intelligence can support the growth of your business rather than hinder it. But that's all we have for today. We would like to extend a massive thank you to James and his team over at Manu Online for the work that they're doing. And for more insight into how leaders in your industry are adapting ERP systems, check out our website. And to stay up to date on news happening around cloud-based tech, follow us on LinkedIn or sign up to our newsletters. Links can be found in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next month with more conversations with leaders from industries around the globe. This podcast is brought to you by Finelight Media. Inspiring Industry is hosted and written by Danielle Champ, produced and edited by Alex Chesery, art and design Charlie Prothero. Amy Jilks is our guest booking manager, Rain Cockburn, our head of marketing, and Rosie Clegg, our social media executive. Finally, we'd like to extend a special thanks to our magazine editor, Libby Hammond, and assistant editor, Mary Floate. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this episode are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Finelight Media and its team.